Hi friends, ecomaine here. We wanted to make a fun do and don't video as far as recycling goes. So what should go in your recycling bin and what shouldn't. So let's start off with the do's. Things that we want include cardboard. This could be a cardboard box that you got in the mail. It could be a shoe box. It could be a cardboard egg carton. Those are great to recycle. We'll also take the plastic ones, but not the styrofoam ones. We want your soup in a box, broth in a box, wine in a box, your alternative milks in a box. Those are also great to recycle. They're called Tetra Paks sometimes. Even if they have a kind of a silvery lining inside, whenever the paper is pulped up or chopped up, think of like a giant blender. All that stuff is actually skimmed away and the paper pulp is left behind. So definitely good to recycle these. Obviously make sure they're empty. We want anything that's a box, it's like paperboardy, so that's great. This is kind of a mix between cardboard and paper. Same with your cereal boxes. All those are fun and wonderful to recycle. Try and break them down if you can, because then there's going to be more room in your recycling bin and therefore more room on the truck. And then the truck doesn't have to go as many times per day to the different neighborhoods. So try and break things down whenever you can as far as the boxes go. So that is all the cardboardy stuff. Now we want paper. We love paper. We'll take anything from your newspapers to your magazines to old just posters or any paper. The rule is, if you can rip it, we'll take it. We want your paper. We just don't want you to say, write a note and then tear it into tons of tiny little pieces, because those teeny tiny little pieces cannot be recycled because they'll just fall through the cracks of our machines. Because we actually sort your paper with this star here. We sort them with more than one star. We have about 300 of those. They're all turning on axles, and therefore the paper goes up and over and falls down on the other side, whereas say your glass, metal, plastic falls through and goes on a different conveyor belt area. So all paper, whether it's cards, envelopes, magazines, newspapers, set envelopes, literally any paper you want to give us, we'll take and we'll recycle it. Cardboard, paper. Next up is glass. We'll take any glass, as long as it's a container. We don't want things like your light bulbs. We don't want your old ceramic mug, because a ceramic and glass are two completely different things. We don't want things like your mirrors and just dangerous stuff like that. So it's got to be a glass container. You can leave the tops on or take them off, your choice, but we'll take them either way, because we actually crush your glass. We crush it up and then make it into things like countertops, fill in potholes in roads, and then other construction companies can come and pick it up, and it's like a nice filler underneath their buildings. So we crush the glass and that metal top would come off, and then we actually pick that up with a magnet and throw it in a nice bin. So that brings us to metals. We love your metal. We have ferrous and non-ferrous. So things with steel or tin, and things with aluminum and other non-ferrous metals in them. So this type is actually grabbed with a magnet and thrown in a bin, whereas this is actually repelled by a reverse eddy current magnet, or I like to call it an opposite magnet. So we are taking out your two different types of metals with two different types of magnets, which I think is really cool. We also actually even take your old pots and pans. The biggest thing is, can someone else use this? If someone else can use this and it's still usable, please give that away. We don't want your stuff that could be reused. We want your actual trash and recycling. We'll talk about trash next, but if it's still good, give it away. So that was metal. And finally, sometimes the most confusing one is plastics. We use every day or every week or every year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of plastic. You can tell what type it is by looking on the bottom. And there's a little recycling symbol right here. This one happens to have a number 1. Your milk jugs happen to have a number 2. And we also have 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 plastics. Number 1 and number 2 are things that you're going to see the most. So maybe go and check out your refrigerator or your cabinets, or even your bathroom, and say, all right, where's a container? Look on the bottom and check it out. It's kind of a cool scavenger hunt. So we take your plastics that are a container. This used to have raspberries. This used to have milk. This used to have yogurt. Used to have cottage cheese. Used to have dish soap. You get the idea. We want a container. It also has to have that number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 on it. And it also has to be something called rigid. It doesn't mean that I can't crush it at all. So I can squeeze this, I can squeeze this. By rigid, I mean I can't do that to it. So this is not something that's recyclable because it's something that I can, plastic that I can squish in my hand. Now you can do this to paper all day, right? You can crumple up paper. So this squishy rule only applies to plastic, not to paper, okay? So it's gotta be a rigid container, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So that's the plastics that we take. A fun note, some of us might be using more soap these days. We love your soap bottles, but under no circumstances do we want your top, because you might see that there's some metal in there. This is also a different type of plastic than this guy. So please remove the pumps from this soap bottle or lotion bottle or shampoo bottle, whatever it might be in, and you can throw that pump in the trash can, or if you can find a fun way to reuse it, that's wonderful. And we'll take your good recycling. Now, as far as the things that we don't want, let's talk about some of those. We talked a lot about squishy plastic. So we don't want things like your chip bags. We don't want the bags of the apples because very squishy. We don't want things like your clementine bags because this is just not at all recyclable plastic. Again, I can also squish it, but it's just not something that we want. We don't want things like your granola bar wrappers, your fruit snack wrappers. Again, squishy plastic. We don't want things like your toothpaste tubes. So you might think, well, it's kind of rigid. Some of them actually even have recycling symbols on them, but it's very misleading. This is not something that ecomaine or really any other recycling facility can take. It's not considered rigid enough, and it's just not something that we can take. So please put these in your trash when you're done. It's lotion, tubes, any kind of tube like this are just not recyclable in your recycling bin. We also don't want kind of random pieces of plastic. So this is the top of a nose spray bottle, and it's not a container. It doesn't have a number 1 through 7 on it, even though it is rigid. That's great, but it's still not recyclable. So this is a no. Things like your forks, knives, spoons, and even straws. Yes, it's rigid, but it's not a container, and it doesn't have a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 on it. So this is a no. For put this in your trash. And there's things like your lids. You might have noticed that I held up a yogurt tub earlier with a lid on it. That's okay if they're attached. But if you just want to give us a lid, what do you think it's going to act like? It's going to act like paper. So this is a no, because we don't want random stuff going in with the paper. So this, since it acts like paper, even this will probably act like paper, and it will both contaminate the paper bales, which is actually pretty terrible. You might think, well, maybe I'm just doing it and it doesn't really matter, but ecomaine actually has about 400,000 customers, and that's about a third of Maine's population. So if one person does it, no, it's not that big of a deal, but if, let's just say, half of our customers do it, that's thousands and thousands of things that are wrong coming into our buildings every day that then humans have to pick out by their hands, and that's just not as much fun, is it? So we want only the good stuff in the recycling bin. So more on the nose, napkins, paper towels, even tissues. We don't want those. You can put napkins, paper towels, even tissues in compost bins. That's really great. So if you are anywhere near Scarborough or South Portland, they have drop-off locations for compost. And if you have a backyard compost, wonderful. If you have a curbside subscription, they pick up on your street, that's wonderful. So any way you can compost is really great. A couple more things on the nose. We don't want things like styrofoam. So styrofoam, it's very lightweight. So this is a no, even though it is rigid. It does have a number 1 through 7 symbol on it. This is actually number 6. And sometimes they do come in the form of containers. So this used to be, it broke a little bit, but it was a container that held meat. Dunkin' Donuts and other coffee shops sometimes have coffee cups that are made of styrofoam, but they're just not recyclable anywhere in Maine. And it's not what we call economically feasible to ship it to Massachusetts or New Jersey to be recycled, because truth be told, it is recyclable, just nowhere close by. And one fun fact is that this is what styrofoam looks like once it's been what we call degassed. So they actually suck the gas out of this and then make this kind of funky looking thing, and then this goes off to be recycled, and they puff it back up with air. So styrofoam is recyclable, but unfortunately nowhere in Maine. So that's gonna go right in your trash can. A couple more things on the don'ts. Here's a hanger. It's got a number 5 on it, right there. But it's a no for recycling. You could totally reuse this. So someone else could use this again. You could reuse it in your closet, whatever you'd like. But since it's not a container, even though it has a number and it is rigid, it cannot go in the recycling bin. Another one that also happens to be a number 5 is my dog food bag right here. So we say no to this, even though it is a container. It does have a number, but it breaks the rigid rule. So when it comes to recycling plastics, it has to be all 3. Container, rigid, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 on it. So that is our little mini tutorial of do's and don'ts. ecomaine is a company that takes your trash and your recycling, and we love to see both, but we don't want the trash in the recycling or the recycling in the trash. So make sure that you separate those 2 streams into 2 different bins or containers, because we just cannot handle a huge amount of trash in the recycling. And we definitely don't want a lot of recycling in the trash, because unfortunately we don't sort out the recycling from the trash. What we do with your trash is we actually combust it or burn it and turn it into ash. So we take it from 100% down to 10%. That's the ash that's left over, and that goes to the landfill, which we line really well and make sure that we're keeping the earth safe. So we line it with really, really good thick plastic, as well as layers of gravel and sand and clay to make sure that we're really keeping the earth safe. So we don't just turn this into ash, we also turn your trash into electricity, which is super cool. Our machine, or our building rather, is called a waste to energy facility. So waste or trash to electricity or energy. And we do that by the heat from the fire heats up water inside these cool pipes. Look how thick that is, very heavy too. The water's running through those pipes. The heat makes it hot, turns it into steam, and the steam pushes a turbine, which pushes a generator. So we're making electricity from your trash. So bear in mind, your recycling sends off to make brand new things. Your trash gets turned to electricity and ash. So please, of course, reduce, reuse, and then recycle, and then compost if you ever can, and only then put stuff in the trash. So check out what you can do with it. We have a couple resources if you ever need them. We have something called the Recyclopedia. It's an online database. So say you were holding something, you say, I don't know if I can recycle this, or I don't know if I can recycle this. You can actually look it up for free on the Recyclopedia. It's an online database at ecomaine.org/101, or you can download the app for free on your smartphone. Just look in your app store under ecomaine or Recyclopedia. You can also email us at info@ecomaine.org, info@ecomaine.org. And I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.